We thought your brother needed some fresh air. He's going with us instead of you. I'm sure you don't mind," my mom said with that dismissive chuckle I knew too well, as my brother John dragged his suitcase across the San Francisco airport terminal, arriving from Denver. I stood frozen, the welcome sign I'd made dropping slightly in my hands. This luxury cruise, the one I'd spent months planning and saving for, was supposed to be my chance to finally bond with my parents. Instead, here I was, watching my unemployed brother steal my place without so much as a thank you. My name is Marianne Thompson, and at 35, I've built a successful life for myself in San Francisco, far from my family's constant disappointments. I'd saved for nearly a year to afford this 5-day cruise, working extra projects and giving up vacations of my own. The presidential suite, the premium dining package, the exclusive shore excursions. I'd carefully chosen every detail to make it perfect. Perfect for the three of us, me, my mom, and my dad. Not for my 37-year-old brother who still lives in their basement playing video games all day while they pay his bills. When I let them fill out the online forms for the trip I had paid, I never expected them to put my brother's name instead of mine. "John gets seasick if he sits in the back," my mom announced, already ushering him toward the passenger seat of my rental car. My dad stood quietly behind them, avoiding my eyes like he always did when they pulled stunts like this. I watched as John sprawled out in what should have been my seat, immediately pulling out his phone to check his gaming notifications. The cruise documents in my bag suddenly felt heavy, all those carefully planned dinner reservations and excursions I'd booked, now useless. "The cruise line needs advance notice for passenger changes," I said quietly, knowing it wouldn't matter. My mom waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, we already took care of that weeks ago. We just transferred your spot to John's name. The resort confirmed everything yesterday." The casual way she said it, like replacing me was the most natural thing in the world, made my stomach twist. I gripped my car keys tighter, feeling the metal bite into my palm as I forced myself to smile. Some part of me knew, standing there in that crowded airport terminal, that this moment would change everything. The happy families rushing past us, the excited chatter of vacation-goers, it all felt like a cruel mockery of what this trip was supposed to be. As I loaded their luggage into the trunk, I could hear my mom already telling John about the spa treatments I'd booked for what was supposed to be our mother-daughter day at sea. The drive to the port felt like watching a movie of my life on repeat. Every mile marker brought back another memory of being pushed aside for John. Growing up in Denver, our roles were clearly defined. John was the one who needed support, while I was the one who could handle things on my own. When I got a full scholarship to college in San Francisco, my parents barely acknowledged it because they were too busy consoling John about his latest failed job interview. When I landed my first executive position, my mom's only response was to ask if I could send more money to help with John's gaming equipment. I'd tried everything to win their approval. Every achievement, every milestone was another attempt to prove I was worth their attention. My apartment in San Francisco's Pacific Heights, the one I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford, sat empty more weekends than not because I was always flying back to Denver, trying to be there for family dinners that inevitably turned into celebrations of John's latest non-accomplishment. "Your brother's thinking about maybe taking some online classes," my mom would gush, while my recent promotion went unmentioned. My dad would just sit there, nodding along, occasionally throwing me apologetic glances that meant nothing without action behind them. This cruise was supposed to be different. I'd spent months planning every detail, imagining how proud they'd be when they saw the luxury suite I'd booked, how impressed they'd be with the exclusive restaurants I'd reserved. I kept picturing my mom's face when she saw the private balcony with its own hot tub, my dad's reaction to the premium wine package I'd arranged. For once, I thought, they'd see me, really see me, and understand how much I'd accomplished, how far I'd come. Instead, here I was, listening to John complain about the car's air conditioning while my mom reminded me to drive carefully because your brother gets car sick. The leather steering wheel felt slick under my sweaty palms as we approached the cruise ship area. Through the rearview mirror, I could see my mom showing John photos of the suite on her phone, the suite I'd spent countless extra hours at work to afford. "Look at this infinity pool," she exclaimed. "It's exactly what you need to relax, sweetie." I tightened my grip on the wheel, wondering if they'd even notice the tears I was blinking back. The worst part wasn't even losing my place on the cruise. It was realizing that they'd probably planned this switch weeks ago, never once considering how it would make me feel. The cruise terminal loomed ahead, its massive white structure gleaming in the California sun. My mom was practically bouncing with excitement as I unloaded their luggage, while John hadn't even bothered to help, too busy texting his gaming friends about his upcoming vacation. I watched as one of the porters wheeled away their bags, my carefully packed overnight bag still sitting untouched in the trunk. The bag I'd filled with new sundresses and sandals, planning for dinners I'd never attend, memories I'd never make. "You'll take lots of pictures, right?" I heard myself asking, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. My mom was already digging through her purse for their boarding passes, the ones I'd originally booked in my name. "Oh, of course, we'll show you everything when we get back," she replied, not even looking up. My dad at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot as he stood there. "Thanks for the ride, honey," he mumbled, before my mom called him over to handle the check-in process. I stood rooted to the spot, watching as they made their way through security. John turned back once, not to thank me, but to ask if I'd remembered to pack his motion sickness pills in his carry-on. The same pills I'd packed for myself, now transferred to his bag without my knowledge. Through the terminal windows, I could see the massive cruise ship, its pristine white hull stretching toward the sky. The ship I'd spent months researching, reading every review, studying deck plans late into the night to pick the perfect suite location. As they disappeared into the terminal, I felt something inside me shift. Years of swallowed hurt, of pushed-down anger, of trying to be the good daughter who never complained. It all crystallized into a single clear thought. I was done. Done trying to prove my worth to people who would never see it. Done competing with a brother who didn't even have to try. Done being the afterthought in my own family. Getting back into my rental car, I made a decision that would change everything. If my family wanted to act like I didn't exist, I would finally give them what they wanted. Complete silence. No calls, no texts, no emails. Let them have their cruise. It would be the last thing they ever got from me. As I pulled away from the terminal, I could see them in my rearview mirror, already laughing and chatting as they headed toward their vacation. My vacation. But for the first time in my life, their happiness didn't make me feel small. Instead, it made me feel powerful. Because I knew something they didn't. This was the last time they would ever take me for granted. The first call from my mom came just hours after they set sail. "The suite is gorgeous, honey. John just loves the private balcony. You should see how relaxed he looks already." Her voicemail was full of details about how much my brother was enjoying the amenities I'd paid for. I deleted it without responding. The second call came during their first dinner at the upscale steakhouse I'd reserved months in advance. "The Wagyu beef is amazing. Your brother says it's the best meal he's ever had." Delete. By day 3 of their cruise, my mom's messages had taken on a slightly confused tone. "Marianne, why aren't you answering? We sent you some photos of the spa day. The massage therapist said it was just what John needed for his gaming-related back pain." My dad left one awkward voicemail, mostly filled with uncomfortable pauses, and a half-hearted, "Hope you're doing well." John predictably didn't bother to call at all. I imagined him sprawled on the balcony lounger I'd picked out, probably complaining about the ocean being too loud while he played games on his phone. I threw myself into work that week, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects, anything to keep my mind off what was happening on that ship. But every ping of my phone, every new voicemail notification, sent a fresh wave of anger through me. The photos they kept sending were the worst. My brother posing in front of the infinity pool I'd dreamed of swimming in. My parents beaming at the candlelit dinner I'd planned as a special moment with them. Each image was like a knife twisting in my gut, but it also strengthened my resolve. "Sweetie, we're back home now," my mom's latest voicemail chirped. "John had such a wonderful time. It was exactly what he needed. We have so many stories to tell you. Call us back. I stared at my phone, remembering all the times I'd rushed to return their calls, desperate for their approval. Not this time. This time, their calls would go unanswered, their messages unread. As I blocked their numbers one by one, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. The daughter they took for granted, the one who always answered, always showed up, always tried to please them, she was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who finally understood her own worth. 2 weeks after their return, the desperate attempts to reach me intensified. My parents began calling my office, prompting my assistant to politely inform them that I was unavailable. They tried emailing, texting from different numbers, even reaching out through my cousins on social media. Each attempt met the same wall of silence. My mom's messages grew increasingly frantic. "Marianne, this isn't like you. We're worried. What's wrong? Why are you being so difficult about this?" I focused on rebuilding my routine without them in it. No more rushed weekend flights to Denver, no more long phone calls listening to John's latest gaming achievements, no more forcing myself to smile through family dinners where I felt invisible. I redecorated my apartment, replacing family photos with art I loved. I joined a hiking group, started taking cooking classes, filled my newly free weekends with things that made me happy. The constant weight of trying to earn their love began to lift, leaving me feeling lighter than I had in years. "Your brother is very upset," my mom's latest email read. "He says you're being selfish, that you've ruined the nice family vacation we had." I laughed out loud at that one, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed through my empty kitchen. The sheer audacity of it was almost impressive. They'd stolen my vacation, replaced me without a second thought, and somehow I was the selfish one? Something about that email solidified everything for me. It was classic them, twisting the situation to make John the victim, making me the bad guy for finally standing up for myself. My dad tried a different approach, leaving a voicemail that actually acknowledged something was wrong. "Honey, if this is about the cruise, well, maybe we should have handled it differently." The subtle understatement was so typical of him, always seeing the problem, but never quite brave enough to really address it. Too little, too late. I added his new number to my blocked list, feeling a small pang but pushing through it. Each time I refused to engage, each call I didn't return, each message I deleted, it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd given away years ago. 3 months into my silence, my mom's facade finally cracked. Her latest voicemail was different, raw, emotional, without the usual excuses for John. "Marianne," her voice cracked, "I understand now. The cruise. We took it from you. You worked so hard to give us something special and we didn't even think about how it would hurt you. We've always taken you for granted because you were the strong one, the successful one. We thought you didn't need us like John does. I see now how wrong we were." My dad followed with his own message, his voice heavy with regret. "Sweet pea, I've been a coward. All these years I've watched your mother and brother dismiss your achievements, and I never stood up for you. I just let it happen because it was easier than rocking the boat. You deserved better from me. You deserved better from all of us." For the first time, I heard real pain in his voice, not just discomfort. The most telling response came from John. Complete silence. No apologies, no acknowledgement of what he'd done. In his mind, he probably still saw himself as the victim, but his silence spoke volumes, highlighting exactly why I'd needed to step away. While my parents were finally facing their mistakes, he remained unchanged, entitled, expecting the world to revolve around him. I sat in my home office, looking out over the San Francisco skyline as I listened to their messages. The sun was setting, painting the bay in shades of gold and pink, and I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. Their belated recognition of their behavior didn't fix the years of hurt, didn't erase the pain of being replaced on that cruise, but it validated my decision to stand up for myself. Their desperation to reach me proved what I'd suspected all along. They'd only valued me when they couldn't take me for granted anymore. Later that evening, as I deleted their latest messages, I caught my reflection in the window. Shoulders back, head high, a quiet confidence in my expression that hadn't been there before. The daughter who would have done anything for their approval was gone. In her place stood a woman who finally understood that their approval had never been worth the price they demanded. 6 months into my silence, my life had transformed in ways I never expected. Without the constant drain of trying to please my family, I found energy I didn't know I had. I redecorated my apartment, replacing the beige walls my mom had insisted on with bold colors I loved. The formal living room furniture that had sat unused, bought because my mom said it made me look established, was donated and replaced with comfortable pieces that actually fit my style. Each change felt like reclaiming another piece of myself. My weekends, once devoted to exhausting flights to Denver and endless family obligations, became mine again. I joined a women's hiking group, started taking photography classes, and even began learning to sail on the bay, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. The money I'd once spent on plane tickets and gifts for John now went into my own adventures. I started a travel fund, planning trips for myself instead of expensive presents for others who didn't appreciate them. Work changed too. Without the constant interruptions from my mom's dramatic calls about John's latest crisis, I found myself more focused, more creative. I got another promotion, this time allowing myself to really celebrate it instead of downplaying it to avoid making my brother feel bad. My colleagues noticed the change in me, commented on my newfound confidence, the way I spoke up more in meetings, how I seemed more present and engaged. The hardest part wasn't the silence itself. It was handling the waves of guilt that sometimes crashed over me late at night. Years of conditioning had taught me that I was responsible for my family's happiness, that setting boundaries made me selfish. But as the months passed, those waves of guilt grew weaker. I started seeing a therapist who helped me understand that my family's behavior wasn't just thoughtless. It was emotional abuse. She helped me see that my silence wasn't punishment. It was protection. Their messages continued, evolving from angry demands to desperate pleas. My mom's latest email was particularly revealing. "We never realized how much we depended on you until you were gone. John's struggling without your help, and we don't know what to do." It was telling that even in her apology, she was still focusing on John's needs. But for the first time, I felt no urge to rush in and fix things. Their struggles weren't my responsibility anymore. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over the bay, I found my dad's last voicemail still saved on my phone. "I miss you, sweet pea." His voice wavered. "I miss the daughter I never took the time to really know." I let myself cry then, not from guilt or pain, but from recognition of my own growth. The daughter he missed no longer existed. In her place was someone stronger, someone who understood that love shouldn't require erasing yourself. Exactly 1 year after the cruise incident, my parents showed up unannounced at my office in San Francisco. My assistant, who had become fiercely protective of my boundaries, called to warn me. "Your parents are in the lobby," she said. "Should I have security escort them out?" I sat at my desk, staring at the family photo I'd finally removed from my wall last month, and made a decision I'd been preparing for all year. "Send them up," I said, my voice steady. When they walked into my office, they looked smaller somehow. My mom's usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by something almost timid. My dad's shoulders were hunched, his eyes unable to meet mine at first. The silence stretched between us until my mom finally spoke, her voice breaking. "We sold the house," she said. "We told John he has to move out and support himself. We're trying to fix things. Not just with you, but with everything." I gestured for them to sit, noting how they perched uncertainly on the edge of their chairs, so different from their usual entitled comfort. My dad pulled out a thick envelope. "These are from the cruise," he said, placing it on my desk. "Every receipt, every charge. We've calculated exactly what you spent, including the deposits and excursions. We want to pay you back." I looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "It was never about the money," I said quietly. "It was about respect, about being seen, about having my feelings considered just once before John's." My mom started crying then. Real tears, not the manipulative ones I'd seen her use so often. "We know," she whispered. "We know that now. But we didn't just come to repay the cruise. We came to tell you that we're in therapy. Both of us. Learning why we did what we did. Why we put so much on you and expected so little from John." I listened as they talked about their realizations, about the damage they'd done, about their hopes to rebuild, not the relationship we had before, but something new, something healthier. They didn't ask for immediate forgiveness or demand I resume contact. Instead, they gave me something I'd never received from them before: respect for my boundaries. As they stood to leave, my dad handed me a letter. "Take your time," he said. "Read it when you're ready. We'll wait until you decide if and when you want us in your life again." They walked out of my office without trying to hug me or make me promise anything. I sat there long after they'd gone, holding the unopened letter, feeling the weight of all it represented. For the first time in our relationship, they were putting my needs first. It wasn't earth-shattering or dramatic, just a quiet acknowledgement of my worth, my right to set boundaries, my power to choose the relationship I wanted. It's been 2 years since that day in my office. I did eventually read their letter, a 12-page confession of every time they'd pushed me aside for John, every moment they'd taken me for granted, every opportunity they'd missed to be real parents to me. It wasn't just an apology. It was an acknowledgement of who I'd become despite their treatment. They wrote about watching me from afar this past year, seeing my success, my strength, my refusal to shrink myself anymore. John never did apologize. Last I heard, he was finally working at a local gaming store, forced to support himself for the first time at 39. My parents maintain careful boundaries with him now, no longer rushing to solve his every problem. They're learning, slowly but surely, that enabling him was never love. It was fear. Fear of letting him fail, fear of letting him grow up, fear of losing their role as his perpetual saviors. As for me, I'm different now. The woman who stood in that airport terminal, silently accepting her replacement, feels like a stranger. I've learned that true strength isn't about enduring mistreatment. It's about having the courage to say, enough. My worth isn't measured by my family's approval anymore, and that's the most valuable lesson this whole experience taught me. I've started rebuilding a relationship with my parents on my own terms. We meet once every few months, just quiet conversations where they listen more than they talk. My mom no longer launches into stories about John the moment we sit down. My dad has found his voice, sharing his own thoughts instead of just nodding along with whatever my mom says. It's not perfect, but it's real, and that's all I ever wanted. Last week, my dad called just to tell me he was proud of the woman I've become, not because of my success or achievements, but because I finally stood up for myself. "You taught us how to be better parents," he said, "by showing us what we stood to lose." My mom added that watching me build my life this past year helped her understand what she'd been doing wrong all along. "We kept trying to make you smaller," she admitted, "when we should have been helping you shine. Sometimes I think back to that cruise they took without me. What felt like the ultimate betrayal became the catalyst for my transformation. By replacing me on that ship, they actually set me free. Free to become someone who would never again accept being an afterthought in her own life."